Welcome back to PSA TV. This is I on Labor. Joining me on set right now, I've got Dr. Real.
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
Good morning. Slowly becoming your second home.
Yeah, of course, of course.
How are you this morning?
I'm not good with the recent news that I keep seeing and hearing, people losing their jobs left, right, and center. And then a strange turnaround yesterday with Heritage Petroleum.
Yeah. Very unfortunate about Mr. Wiley, though.
Yes, of course. And as I explained to my co-host this morning on Synergy, you can't assume that he knew he was sick.
No.
And sickness is something. I mean, my childhood neighbor just died last weekend. She was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer a few months ago. So she had no idea she was sick. And the funny thing is, her husband has been terminally ill for years. He has a lifestyle diseases.
Yeah.
And he is living. He's blind now, but he's alive.
Wow.
And he has been that way for years. And she was taking care of him. So we can't assume that someone knew they were sick,
But I think in the event, we can only wish him well and hope
definitely.
for the best. He has, however, been replaced by Mr. Michael Commoner.
No, actually, that is not accurate. Mr. Espine has been replaced by Mr. Commoner. Mr. Wiley, who is sick, has been replaced by a group of people.
We're yet to get a proper CEO.
Yes, correct.
Yes, my apologies there. Mr. Espine has been replaced by Mr. Michael Commoner, and a new board was instated yesterday.
Well, I see the same old faces.
I see same members, but we have
I guess you have one or two adjustments there.
Yeah.
What concerns me, Christy, is that I saw these people in upper management at Petrotrin when the mismanagement took place. So it comes as no surprise to me that the company is not doing so well. Yeah. And then if you did, shuffling before, you said that you were restructuring. 1 year later, restructuring again. So somebody is not getting something right.
But with the same members, not all, I'm sure, are the same members, but with the same faces, and you expect to get different results.
Well, they say doing the same thing and
that's
expecting a different.
That's the definition of insanity.
Correct. And then the thing about shuffling is if you have a pack of cards and there are 52 cards in the pack, and you are only selecting a certain portion of 52, then you can shuffle and get a change. But when you're shuffling the same 12 cards or 15 cards, nothing changes, So.
And you would have been an employer back
yes, I've
then.
member at Petrotrin, for 12 years.
For 12 years, coming out of it and looking from an outsider's perspective, do you think that, there stands to be any kind of hope in that company now?
To be quite honest with you, what made Petrotrin financially viable, and what we need to keep in mind is that Petrotrin was up there in terms of earning foreign exchange. So now that you have a lack of foreign exchange in your economy, it stands to reason that because of the closure of Petrotrin, that would be a direct adverse effect, right? Additionally, we have to understand the process of oil refining, production, oil and gas. You get the oil up from the ground, the extraction process, which is essentially production. Then you pipe it to the refinery where the refining process takes place. And when it's refined, then you have your petroleum products coming out of that. And then that can be sold for top dollar on the local and the international market. You had your gas subsidies, you have even your cooking gas as a byproduct of that. What the powers that be try to negate from is the fact that our oil, in its raw state, our crude, does not fetch a great price on the international market. Because it is what we consider sour crude. And you have to mix that with sweet crude in order to effect some sort of, value to it. Because on its own, it doesn't present much value because it is difficult to refine. It has a high sulfur content. And a lot of the refining that takes place internationally has moved away from sour crude, right? So that's the reason why the company will not be financially viable. It would not be profitable because all they're doing is extracting and selling it, and you're purchasing petroleum products. One is high priced and one is low priced. Chinese arithmetic doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
But you know, it's something that has been happening. And then if you look at, you know, I think it would have been the day before as well. Heritage Petroleum would be hiring almost 800 people. Now, you fire hundreds. You don't absorb them into the company again.
Thousands. Fired thousands, yeah.
Yeah. And now you're hiring 800 people. Your company now is suddenly profitable. I don't know if it's an overnight profit. I don't know. You know, I always wonder if it's because of a name change the company started to, you know, because
I've heard that statement made before. I'm trying to remember who said it.
was not making money, so they say, not my words, but Petrotrin was not making money, and so they decided, okay, you're not making money, we're going to close you down.
Correct.
Or we're going to restructure.
Right.
Fancy term again. And suddenly, after a name change, you've got this company now making lots and lots of profit. So it makes me wonder, well, was it just a name change? Because nothing changed. You have the same
infrastructure.
And not just infrastructure, you have the same managers. So what has changed?
That's the question.
You know?
Should I respond to that question? What I could see that has changed is they have gotten rid of the union.
Yes.
Right? And essentially they got rid of a lot of workers. Right? The majority of the workforce is gone. And currently the refinery is, you know, not being run. It's in a mothball stage. Which means it's just there in case someone comes to run it, they can start it up in a shorter period of time than it was totally shut down. What has changed at Petrotrin? What I have seen, a name change. I have seen a lack of security, and we heard about, was it 200 million in assets being stolen?
Yes.
You have a private security firm when before you had in-house security, and in-house security always better for you as a company because these people have vested interest in the company. The company makes money, they make money. The company lose money, they would stand to lose as well. Now you have a contracted company doing the security, and obviously the level of training the Petrotrin security officers would have had, Amalgamated Security does not have it. And you see, I live in the fields, so I see it every day. And there are less patrols. Amalgamated Security does not know the fields. The fields of Petrotrin is like a maze. You can get lost in there for days. I guarantee you, from being all over the southern peninsula and the southern half of Trinidad and Tobago.
Still never covered it entirely.
Thank you. You cannot cover the entire field in one day, and you can get lost. I have second guessed myself a lot of times driving through the fields. What has changed is I see that the government has given them a tax break.
Yes.
And then I see that the government has given them, they have gotten a loan as well. I think that the same could have been done with the old company. And what I think that they could have done in the short term, 40% of the workforce were over 50. Could have offered a visa to that 40%, and the company would have still been viable. And the Lashley report, the Solomons report, would have advised them to do that and to pay attention to management.
But they've never implemented anything from the last report.
Of course not. And as I would have done my studies in human resource management, anytime you have a turnover, what you negated to mention earlier is that they sent home a few people.
Yes.
A few hundred. Yes. And now they are rehiring 800. Anytime you have a high turnover of your human capital, it says something about your human resource management.
That is questionable.
It is.
And
then you see management being shuffled around and changed and so on.
Yeah. I mean, it's just about 2 days ago, there were a 10-member committee that was implemented, and then within 24 hours, we see new members, I'm putting it loosely because it's not really new members, it's the same faces. And then we've also seen, because you brought up an interesting point just now about the other properties of Petrotrin. And you have the Augustus Long Hospital there.
Yes.
That is something
parked.
that it's just there.
I mean, I don't always give the union credit, but I think that if given the opportunity, the Oil Workers Trade Union could have done a top job at managing the hospital, making it financially viable, and even the refinery. My question is, they had brought in some foreign companies who wanted to invest.
Yes.
Why weren't they given the opportunity? And I always subscribe to the citizenry of Trinidad and Tobago never had a public consultation.
No, there were not
They were never asked what they want. I think that we have enough businessmen locally who are in a financial position to invest, and they could have each bought shares in the company, and we could have kept it as our own. That way we would be heading to first world status in the way that Dubai is. But now it looks like we might be heading towards Equatorial Guinea, which I don't know if you are familiar with, but ExxonMobil controls everything. And the politicians of that country are the only people who are rich in that country.
Yeah.
So
They operate in a very serious class system there.
not just that, 50% of the population is above the poverty line. That statistic speaks for itself. So 85% of the population are below the poverty line and has to depend on whatever scraps the government hands on to them. While the government, which is the president and his family, live lavish of the profits of the country.
Wow.
You need to check that out.
I will.
I should send you the link.
Yeah.
I'm surprised I didn't.
I hope we're not headed to that.
No, I would hope so
I
too,
hope
but
so.
it kind of,
We're not
reminds
borderliners
me.
yet. We're
No,
not
we ain't that close. But if they sell the company or the refinery to a foreign
international
oil company, we could be headed for
You know what?
something.
You know
like
what's very ironic here? You had a company that was not making any profit.
Actually,
That's what they said.
they said, but they declared profit in the last couple of months.
Right.
That
But
Petrotrin
prior
was-
to that, you have foreign companies investing in a company like Petrotrin. So,
Right.
which means, no, do you really invest in something that is not profitable?
No,
But you see profit in it, so that's why they have
exactly.
vested interest in it. And it's the same interest that I know the OWTU had, and they were not given any kind of opportunity to, well, okay,
Correct.
let me just, hear out. I think it's because the relationship between the government and the trade union has been so disjointed
Yes.
that you keep them at bay and you do as much as you can to possibly dismantle them.
Correct.
And first, you always think that, well, trade unions don't know anything, so all right.
Yes.
You look at them as, okay, they're dinosaurs.
Right.
So we're not going to listen to you. We're going to go ahead and bring in these foreigners. And I really hope that, a local company possibly, or there's some hope for us locally.
When you say a local company, I think of
But I don't-
Amalgamated and the whole
Well,
conglomerate.
well, that was
and I wouldn't want them to get their hands on the
That's another
refinery. That
story.
would be
yes.
devastating. You know?
But when I say local, I mean the trade union and the people that they've been in talks with. So possibly you never know which way it can go.
I guess in this situation, we can only
Hope.
hope.
We play the
and
waiting
see.
game. But as someone who would have been there, how difficult or how easy it is to be, in a situation where you've got management changing as an employee, or were you there when there were any kind of changes or anything like that?
Okay, well, every time there's a change in government, there's always a change in management.
Yeah.
And I think that led to the downfall of Petrotrin. I always classified the mismanagement of Petrotrin as compared to a leaky bucket, where you have a bucket of water and it's filled to the brim, but then you have a leak. So little by little, your water is sure to be depleted. And there are a lot of things that was done where the government changed that led to mismanagement, right? And eventually the closure of Petrotrin. And it was done by both governments, sorry to say. the reality is when one government comes in office, they appoint different managers. So the old managers, sometimes they resign, and sometimes they are left in what they consider special projects. So they can't fire them outrightly. So they place them in an office, as we like to say in HR, with 4 white walls.
Oh.
So either they frustrate them into resigning, or they just stay there and collect a salary. So you see another person added to management, or persons per se, and you have that money constantly being drained from the profitability and the profits of the company. And then obviously, if I come in as a manager, I want my friends to benefit.
Yeah.
So there's a contractocracy where I would give contracts.
I like that term, contractocracy.
I would give contracts to the people that are on my side. Obviously, if I'm the Green Party, I would want my finances to benefit. So obviously, the Green people have to get contracts in the company. So you have a lot of, a lot of clutter there in terms of contracts, in terms of employment. You would hire a new HR manager. He would bring in a whole host of people who do absolutely nothing when the day come. You don't know what their job description is. You don't know what their portfolio is. But you see them coming to work every day. Jeez. All right? And some days more than others. And they don't add to the profitability of the company. But obviously, they're collecting a salary. So they're taking away from the profit of the company. And it happened over the last...
other companies
yes.
as well, we've seen it. But
so I think the government's intervention into Petrotrin is what is a bad thing, and you see it happening again.
Yeah.
Right? Because Espine was at TCL, we see TCL closed down, and so on and so forth and so forth. And then we see the Prime Minister hired his attorney to run Petrotrin. Again, political intervention. But that is not recommended. In the more first world countries, you see there's always a clear demarcation between what the government does into the intervention of the oil industry or the gas industry or whatever industry is there to provide for the economy. There needs to be a line of demarcation, as they call it, separating church and state. Well, let's consider the oil industry the church in this regard.
Yeah. And in case you're now joining us here on PSA TV, this is Eye on Labour. On set, I've got with me Dr. Reel, and we've been chatting about the state of the economy, basically Petrotrin, he being a former Petrotrin employee for over 12 years. I'm sure you would have seen, I believe it was day before yesterday, where Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley made a very scathing attack on public servants, calling them very lazy and that they don't give out anything whatsoever to the public, and all they do is they make noise at the end of the month when or if they get their salaries late. Your thoughts as a former public servant yourself?
I don't know where to begin with this, but what I can say, right, people would, I know I'd get a lot of clout for referring to first world status. However, I think that when you are, aspiring for better, you look at people that are above you. Just like, in the workplace, you might look at a worker who works a little bit harder than you and try to, bring your standard up to their standard or beyond. First world status. In these first world countries, you see that government workers are usually higher paid than the private sector. In Trinidad and Tobago,
it's
however,
the opposite.
It's the opposite. So my take on this is sometimes you have to clean house first before you criticize the cook.
Yeah.
You cannot, as the Prime Minister of a country, make such a statement when you are vicariously liable thereat.
Because he's basically the chief public servant. You are head of the public service.
Well, that might be the president. People might argue that that's the president, but he is up there. And I'm thinking that you are responsible for management of the entire country. as it constitutes the public sector, and you make a statement on that, it's like shooting yourself in the foot. No offense to the constable who would have shot himself in the foot accidentally.
I should not be laughing at this.
Yeah,
right.
but the thing is, when you make a statement like that, I don't think it's a well thought out statement. I think that recently we've seen that the Prime Minister makes a lot of irresponsible statements. And obviously, Mr. Duke had an opinion of his own.
Taking a page out from a former politician's
yes,
comments.
I do understand. I can't understand why the Prime Minister would say such a thing. And he also spoke to what you didn't mention, is that he spoke to it being a catalyst in corruption. Because you as a citizen now, when you go to the public service to get business done, you would rather pay to have it done rather than have to go through the system. And I'm saying, Mr. Prime Minister, we elected you to do a job. Your job is to find these problems and not just throw shade at it, not just talk about it, not just make a comment about it, not just play smart with foolishness, as some might say you're doing. Your job is to fix the problem. We trust you to fix the problem.
The power's in his hands.
Yeah, because you said when you wanted to be voted into office that you could fix everything. Because you know politicians give you the world of promises.
Of course.
But which one of those promises have you even, brought to fruition? So it raises a lot of questions. And when a man says something like this, it speaks to his management style and his ability to manage. Because instead of you being the head of the household and you just blaming the children for their bad behavior, you fail to realize that that is an indictment on you.
And I'm just pulling up the article here. In case you're viewing and you probably don't know what we're talking about. So just a quick read from the Express newspaper where it says, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley says that many of those employed in the public service produce absolutely nothing when the day comes, but makes the most noise when their pay is late. And he went on to say that he distinctly recalled when he joined the public service at a time, a long, long time ago, when the service was really like the public service. It makes me wonder what does that...
What's his definition of the public service?
Yeah, because I don't think he quite understands what the public service means on the whole. Because if you're going back to, so what is the difference there? But just to go on here, he said, every officer like himself, having been attached to the public service, you were given a diary. In that diary, every day you had to record your movement and your actions. So is that we're going back in the past to...
Is he subscribing to a dinosaur rhetoric?
I think that is what it is. Because if you're saying now that this was something that was implemented, his words not mine, a long, long time ago, and you're trying to say we had a diary. So if I were to be a public servant, you're going to hand me a diary and tell me write down everything you do. That sounds like modern day slavery to me.
Well, the thing is, we are in a technology age where now you have a tablet or a smartphone. So I don't know if he is aware, but using a statement like a diary and suggesting that we go back to that time, it kind of reeks of, the inability to...
It's not forward thinking.
Yeah, as I was about to say. It reeks of the inability to, to evolve with the times. So Dr. Keith Rowley, I'm wondering if you're trapped in the past, if you're in what you call a time capsule. I just have to wonder, because when you make a statement like that, it goes far and wide,
I mean, think about a public servant who probably is coming from Point Fortin or something.
Correct.
And she has to come to town to work. She leaves home at what, 4 o'clock?
I like where you're going.
3 o'clock. And you telling me I produce absolutely nothing at the end of the day? You're telling that woman who's coming from South every morning, whether she's sick or not, to work at whatever government building. She has kids to take care of. She deals with the public, and let's put the icing on the cake here. She's working on a 2007 salary. That she produces absolutely nothing at the end of the day. Now, I don't think
I think
people act a certain way when they're not happy. We do it on different levels.
Correct.
So one of the most, what I've observed, many public servants are disenchanted.
Disgruntled.
They're very disgruntled, and rightly so, because you cannot survive in this day and age with a 2007 or a 2013 salary. Negotiations have been pending for as long as we know.
Right.
So you come now and you tell public servants this. Think about how it's going to mess with someone's psyche. If you know that you're doing your best given the circumstances, and let's not even get involved with some of the working conditions these people work under. I know some public servants, officers, and toilet paper is a big issue, a lack of water, the air conditioner not working, and you have this.
Christy, I don't know if you can recall when Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Keith Rowley, was elected, Christopher Rowley, was elected into office. He made a statement that the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago have grown too accustomed to the government taking care of roads, the government taking care of public buildings, government buildings, healthcare, and so on. And the public needs to be weaned off of the government. Now, as usual, I am of the view that the Honorable PM did not think that statement true, because we, the people, elected you to manage our resources.
We gave you that power.
It's like, exactly, it's like you have a business and you give a manager a job to manage your financial affairs. And if that manager is not managing properly, what happens?
Yeah, companies
Right, and you can lose that entire company because of his mismanagement. Let's start where you started, Christy. Someone has to get up in the morning. Why does a public servant who lives in the Southland, in such a small island, have to get up that early to get to Port of Spain? Let's start with, why is the office not centralized? Okay? Whose responsibility is it?
Why don't have a proper shift system?
Besides that, let's not go too far ahead of ourselves, because we have to let the persons who are caught in the past catch up. So I'm saying, why don't we centralize government offices? Why does everyone in Deep South have to come to North? And then we have a traffic situation that we've been having for years. We have poor roads that we've been having for years, but I guess this is his way of weaning us off. Moving along quite swiftly, when you travel for 2 hours, and I can speak to that because I live deep south as well, to get to Port of Spain every day, I leave home at 4 a.m. Wow. And the reason for that is because I don't want to encounter traffic. Because why? We keep bringing cars into the country and not improving our roads. We keep bringing cars into the country and not increasing our roadways.
Yeah.
We pay motor vehicle tax. We don't know where that goes. Because I see myself paying taxes. I pay to inspect my vehicle. I pay tax on tires, which is something that this government implemented. I pay tax for registration of the vehicle initially, and so on and so forth and so forth. Every year you have to give them money for your vehicle's presence, owing to your vehicle's presence on the road. What have I gotten in the last 4 years, in the last 9 years, in the last 14 years for my vehicles? Nothing. I have seen roads that haven't been resurfaced in 20 years. My road in front of my house has not been resurfaced in 20 years. So I'm saying, what are you doing to change this, Dr. Keith Rowley? When you speak of public servants, these people give human service for next to nothing salaries, as you subscribe to, and as it's quite apparent in the public service. I know a lot of hard-working public officials. I know a lot of hard-working government employees, people who travel for miles and miles, who leave their homes every day, Monday to Friday, at ungodly hours and get to their homes at the same time. These people don't see the light of day when the week is, ongoing. Yeah. They see their home, they leave their homes in darkness, and they get to their homes in darkness. Yeah. Additionally, sometimes these people have to subscribe to the crime situation, but that's a whole different story. So then how can you judge these people when the saying, the old adage that says, judge me when you've walked a mile in my shoes. I think Dr. Kid spent 1 month at a government office with that salary, living in South, 3 children, and tell me that you think the conditions and all the surrounding variables are sufficient and suitable.
I would pay to see that. I really would. Like, I would love to see him trying to adjust to probably traveling, because, you know, with the average salary that a public servant has, it doesn't really, it's not enough for them to own a car. The majority of them use public service.
Public transport, and that in itself is in a state. I pass buses on the side of the road almost every day, shut down. What happens then? They have to resort to the same public transportation that costs double the amount of the PTSD. So I pity these people, and I feel sorry for them. And so speaking, I feel sorry for myself too, because 90% of Trinidad and Tobago doesn't know that my severance was just over $100,000. Now you tell me, what is a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago who has no medical plan anymore, with the high cost of living now, being the target of the criminal element because everybody feels I have $1 million, what am I supposed to do with $100,000 over 10 months? I have cars to maintain, I have to try to pay off my loans, mortgage and whatnot and whatnot. What can I do with $100,000 after 12 years of service? So I think a lot of factors come into play here.
Yeah.
I have a super highway of thought. We wouldn't even have time to express all my thoughts. So, you know, it's really, really disheartening, and it's hurtful.
It's hurtful. I think at the end of the day, it's more than anything, I think it's very hurtful that you come out here and you blast all public servants because of, first of all, how do you even know that they produce nothing? Do you even be in public offices?
Well, not just that. Then if they produce nothing, how are your ministries being run?
And how are you measuring this now?
Exactly. How are your ministries being run? If you see that documents are being processed and administrative duties are properly being meted up now, we did some research on Synergy TV recently relative to the Auditor General's office and the audits that have been done over these past 10 to 14 years. And you see a lot of shortfalls in terms of overpayment. So I'm saying, okay, if we wanna choose something recent, if public service, or servants rather, weren't working properly, how was the Calabar Foundation able to process that check?
And what are you paying them for?
Not just that. That check went through the public service. How was it processed so quickly? By public servants? A lot of questions here.
Let me just say a hi and special good morning going out to some of our viewers here. I'm seeing here we've got, just give me 1 second. Okay. Just we've got some avid viewers this morning, and I'm seeing a lot of good comments coming in from your following as well.
Oh, my following. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Let's see here. All right, special hi and good morning to Ezekiel Isaac. He says, remember what they did with the methanol point leases that Summarize came leased? The company paid off for it and they became a billionaire and left owing the workers. Interesting point there. Hi and good morning going out to Alizia Narayan Singh as well. And she says hi and good morning and have a blessed day. To Wayne Lala, and to Gloria Sinanan and Bernadette Lucy Sammy. So.
And the rest of the
And the rest of the
275 viewers.
Yes.
Tamika James, good morning as well.
Yes. So before we went to news, we were talking about, those comments there made by the Prime Minister.
I think when you're in a position of, I remember looking at a movie, The Gambler, and the star of the movie was Mark Wahlberg, and he wanted to borrow money from a money lender, of course. The money lender told him, you need to be in a particular position. When I give you this money, you need to be in a position where you could talk down to me. That is what I want for you. So it means that you have to do better than you're doing now.
Yeah.
So as it relates to the comments made by the Prime Minister, I think only when you're in a position of improvement or increased production, or when you can see that you would have done something for the public service, then you can critique it.
Yeah.
Then and only then are you in a position to make comments like you did. But we see that you have outstanding negotiations, you're not paying the people properly, you don't have good working conditions for them, but people are being paid millions of dollars to house these government offices, and then you make a statement like that. It's an indictment on you, sir.
Simply put.
Simply put. And that's the sanitized version. Because she keeps telling me, you need to have a sanitized version, You can't just tell him, hush your so-and-so, you know?
Yes.
Or there's a real out-of-timing statement, or how you can make a statement like that is that this, or whatever, because we would have our opinions, and I'm sure these citizenry of Trinidad and Tobago all have, choice words.
Yes.
Especially the public servants.
I would
Given the state of our economy and the state of the country.
I would love to know what some of the public servants, their thoughts are.
You need a call-in segment.
Yes.
Oh, well, you can read the comments.
Yeah. Just so if you have any thoughts on as a public servant, and if you're viewing, just tell us your thoughts. We'd love to hear what you are thinking, or what are your thoughts on the fact that the Prime Minister has labeled the public servants as lazy loafers, saying that you produce absolutely nothing when the day comes. It's quite disturbing for me, but I would love to hear what the viewing audience has to say on that.
Yeah, but then it begs the question again, what have you, the Prime Minister, done? Okay, since you came into office, what have you done?
Yeah.
Let's measure your work now. You made a statement, as we subscribed to earlier, that the people need to be weaned off for the government. But who is the government? The government is that body of people that is elected by the people, for the people, because of the people, to serve the needs of the people. What have we seen happening so far? The closure of Petrotrin. Was that for the people, or was it for a person? Did it benefit many, or did it benefit few?
The few.
These are the questions you have to ask yourself, Mr. Prime Minister. We see unemployment has reached 50,000, and it keeps climbing.
Yeah.
Because recently you saw CDA is about a lay of 268 people. You saw Unilever is about, Unilever has been one of the oldest industries in Trinidad and Tobago. What have you done to preserve that, Mr. Prime Minister? Additionally, what have you done since getting into office? You purchased a new Benz for yourself. Was that totally and absolutely necessary? Was that in the best interest of all the citizenry of Trinidad and Tobago, that you drive around in a new Benz? We see that in places like Russia, the politicians, the Prime Minister takes a taxi to his office. You understand? We see, let us think about it holistically. Why do the politicians appear as though they are the hierarchy? They are the employers, and we, the people, are the employees. Why isn't it that we, the people who elect them into office, why aren't they working for us? It seems as though they are working for themselves. You understand? Sad to say, the Prime Minister's friend was involved in a fake oil fiasco. And then we see, is it coincidental that Petrotrin was closed after that? We see situations where corruption on both sides of the table, has taken place under the Prime Minister's nose when he was, as he once subscribed to a backbencher. We see the Malcolm Jones issue arising. There was, persecution thereat. It was in the courts. You chose to withdraw it. It went to the Privy Council. They said you all didn't have sufficient reason to withdraw the matter. You said that the statements would be released to the public. We are yet to see those statements. We saw a situation where persons who were in office were asked certain questions about their connections to certain offices being of the government again, being housed in their buildings and they being paid exorbitant amounts of rent. What have you done about that?
Yeah.
Is this what we're supposed to accept? We see flooding taking place in our country. This is not to the benefit of the common man. Who gets flood out? Not the government officers, not the government ministers, not anybody in office. Why we see that happening over and over? Since we've seen this government being elected into office for 4 years, what improvement have you seen? Now, I expect the sycophants to,
run off on a tangent.
Yeah, because sycophantitis is a disease that spreads from person to person, from generation to generation, and it's very deep-seated in DNA. Yeah, it doesn't just go away. They say it's worse than HIV, so I'm not sure. So I expect them to come at me with that.
Yes.
But what happens? Was the procedure? Was proper, intervention done? Public consultation? We the people are the employers. When are you going to consult with us for the things that you're doing? You understand? Upgrading the Magnificent Seven. Yes, we appreciate that because, that's part of our heritage. But what have you done for the common man? How is my standard of living improved? Under this government, I've lost my job. I mean, you keep saying you'll prop up the pension for us, but we haven't seen $1 going into the pension fund yet. What is going on with national insurance? Everything seems to be falling apart. You understand? What improvements have you done to the country as a whole? We've seen highways going everywhere, but the regular roads that we have, we are borrowing money.
It's in deplorable conditions.
You understand? Under the previous administration, we saw the asphalt, the pitch lake, being leased
to China.
Why is it that all these Chinese companies are coming into Trinidad and setting up office? Why is it that everywhere you turn, you see a casino or a grocery owned by the Chinese people? Is it that we are slowly becoming like Jamaica, where the Chinese own mostly everything? Why is it that one security firm has control of everything? Why did we see a slow disbanding of the Estate Constable Association as it relates to government offices, government employed estate constables who are hired through service commission? Why is that happening? Mr. Prime Minister, I am very, very concerned for the well-being and the future of the economy of Trinidad and Tobago and the government offices, status, persons, employees as a whole.
Truth be told, you never really know what is happening, because transparency and accountability is something it's like, what's the saying? It's like love. You talk a lot about it, but it's just there. You don't really see it. It's not something that you can actually see. So you hear a lot about accountability.
It's not tangible.
Transparency. Let's not even get started on diversification.
What about corruption?
Well,
in the Ministry of Agriculture, have you seen any extensive endeavors to grow crops and diversify the economy? As you touched on that, we've seen a lot of importation of food. Why is that happening?
Our food import bill remains high, very high.
I've seen one group of people, besides the Chinese, owning everything now. Everywhere you look, there's a Massy, and there's a Amco, and there's a Amalgamated. Why one group of people owning everything and controlling everything? Why it is that I have water restrictions, but I am not seeing less bottled water? Is it a conspiracy because less bottled water was being sold? So if you start restriction on water, we'll have to buy water. Why is it? Where's Mr. Manning? May he rest in peace. Where's his Vision 2020? We are in 2019, under the same administration. Other questions and no answers?
Funny thing that you would say that, because last night on Twitter I saw a girl posted, every time she here's the term 2020. She remembers
Mr.
Manning.
He promised water for all.
And, we're slowly approaching 2020, but much of his vision for 2020 has not been...
has not come to fruition.
No.
I'm seeing rain clouds in the sky. Do I have to be afraid to drive out of Port of Spain after the rain? That is scary. Look at what happened Wednesday.
Yeah.
On the back of Mr. Rohanson, the Minister of Works and Transport, saying that it's highly unlikely that we're going to get flooding. He said that a couple months ago.
Yeah, because, time
where the checks and balances?
You have this continuous problem of flooding in the capital.
Right.
Year in, year out. Why hasn't something been done properly? Government is not to blame solely. We have littering, of course, as a huge problem.
Well, the thing is, if you put systems in place to treat with that, why we do establish
you put some recycle bins, stuff like that, but nothing has been done. Let's see here. I have Bernadette Lucy Sammy says, Rowley called public servants lazy, but he and his cabinet are failures. He once said, I want my money. He's selfish and classless. So give the public servants.
He said he doesn't like his money sleeping out. Oh, wait. Let's not go too far. Didn't they just raise their pensions?
Yes.
But public servants have outstanding negotiations. Isn't that?
And we talk about equity and equal distribution of wealth, but here it is.
And declaring your wealth.
And wow. Declaring your wealth.
We wouldn't finish our conversation today, right?
No. But you made an interesting point just now when you spoke about, you yourself was jobless under this administration.
And 50,000 other people.
Yeah. Coming out of it, what it took from you to come out of that?
You can't expect me to respond to that in 7 minutes, Christy. What you mean? But I can tell you that initially, there's denial. You go through a stage of denial where, you can't deal with it. You just push it aside. You convince yourself that you have a job, you have a life, and that. And then eventually you get to the stage where you accept it. And when you accept it now, you start worrying about the mortgage. You start worrying about the car payment. You start worrying about your dependents, whether it be a mother, your kids, whatnot. You start worrying about, what if I end up homeless and on the street? Of course, you start thinking worst case scenario, and it keeps you up at night. I was I'm not sure if this is a word, so let me put that disclaimer out there. I was an insomniac.
Yeah, it isn't
for a couple of months.
It isn't good.
I could not sleep. And it was not until about a few months ago that I actually recovered from that, and I've been able to sleep through the night. And it was so bad, Christy, that I would will myself to sleep at the normal time, and I would wake up after 2 hours of sleep. Wow. I could not sleep for more than 2 hours between the hours of 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. You understand? And that went on for months.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, I kept turning this money around in my mind. How should I do? I cannot pay off this loan. I cannot pay off that loan. What should I do? And then there's a whole scenario where you apply to different companies for jobs and they tell you, 1, you're overqualified. Yeah. 2, you came from Petrotrin, we don't want you.
Yeah, we can't pay you.
Yeah, we don't want you. You all are too unionized. Because why? The people of Petrotrin were demonized, they were vilified, and they were made, the public was given a false perception that we received handsome sums of money. And then now the bank is breathing down my throat. That's still happening because I cannot make enough income in as much as I try to do it on my own.
Yeah.
I cannot hustle hard enough to pay off these existing loans.
Yeah.
That's what my government did to me. You understand? So when we talk about who is lazy, maybe we should ask ourselves, how lazy is the government? Because they just made an ad hoc decision that affected thousands, tens of thousands of people. You understand? That whole joblessness, we will have to sit here for 2 hours and talk about that. Because trust me,
there are different aspects to it,
a lot of different variables, different elements.
I'm more interested in knowing, because it's something that a lot of people refuse to talk about, the mental aspect of it. Like how difficult it is for you mentally to come out of something like that.
Christy, here's what I can tell you. For those of you out there suffering with depression, you're not alone.
You're
And
not.
you know what's the sad thing about this whole thing? When you have a strong mind,
Yeah.
you have a strong mind that propels you to be so strong that you don't even think of suicide.
Yeah.
It's like you're living in prison. And the prison is your mind, because you've never ever considered suicide as an option because you see yourself as being too strong for that. But you sit there. I have sat in the same position for days. I have sat here and thought about it, and you just realize, wait a minute, 48 hours pass and I'm in the same position. I'm sitting in the same place. I haven't gone to the shower. I haven't eaten anything. Yeah, that is how dread depression is. Depression is when you start to withdraw to such a degree that time passes and it's of no effect to you. Trust me when I tell you that. Days pass and you didn't realize you're just sitting in one position that's existing.
There's strength on another level.
You might doze off and then you get back up and that's it. You keep sitting there thinking about everything.
And then you have to now adjust and readjust to what is now going to become your normal life.
Correct.
Because, I mean, when you're working, it's different than when you're home.
Yeah, you expect a salary at the end of the month. So you know this bill will get paid automatically, that bill will get paid automatically. You would take out, you have salary assignments as well, you know. And then, of course, your dependents don't seem to understand. Yeah. They haven't gotten used to the fact that he is not working now. So people ask you for things. Of course, with the natural progression, you know, things happen. Your phone falls, it gets damaged, you know you can't buy a phone. So you have to fight up with the old phone now.
Yeah.
You understand? Your car, when you get a blowout, you worry. Do I have to buy a tire now? What happens? Your car runs over the due date for service. You worry about, every time you hear some strange sound in your car, you're worried about if it's the engine going to fail.
But don't worry, that's just the public servants not doing anything and you're all being lazy loafers. You know. But I mean, if positions were to be traded, yes, and for one day, not even a day, for a few hours, if positions were to be traded, and let's look at it from either the morning or an evening, a nice evening. If positions were to be traded from the said person who would have made those comments into the life of a public servant, then and only would he be able to really know.
Funny you should say that. I think the main issue here is that the powers that be, they don't suffer how we suffer.
They don't.
They don't have to endure traffic.
No, they don't.
They don't have to work extra hours to make their salary. They don't have to face the public health care system.
Oh boy.
So, in light of that, they don't truly know the sufferings and the pains of the citizenry. So that's why there's no human connection with that. They always think that you and I are exaggerating.
Yeah, yeah. And you touched on public health system.
That's a whole different conversation. And the funny thing about life is sometimes you ask yourself, why do all these things coincide with me? Mm-hmm. Why do I have to be affected by this, that, and the other?
Take like a bush bath or something.
No, it's not a bush bath. It's just because you're living here.
Yeah.
And it's just that the reality of the situation
is
sometimes God places you in situations so that you can be able to speak to the situation.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can speak to someone else who doesn't have to be in the situation, or someone who might be in the situation and need a little bit of encouragement. That's how I look at it.
And I mean, your story is one of success. I know you've told me that you're not a success story so far, but personally, I mean, coming out of being jobless into someone who's now, you know, holding your end on your own, it is successful at the end of the day. So hats off to you, your strength. You've been doing your thing. So it's not something that a weak mind can do. You know, coming out of Petrotrin, you know, you would have expected a certain lifestyle as well.
Yeah, of course. The healthcare system in Petrotrin was, I mean, one of a kind. Yeah. And now having to face the public healthcare, If something stings you on your hand, you wonder if a wasp bites you, a ant bites you. You wonder the reaction you're going to have, and if you have to go and face that long line at the hospital.
Someone recently told me, an old woman, she said, it's better we go back to the bush medicine days rather than going to the public health care.
Actually, and I do subscribe to that.
I said, well, that's good and that's also bad, because sometimes people self-diagnose themselves with a lot of things, and you could be treating it for something when it's something totally different. But I think she was just trying to say, because of the length of time she had to be there, that she felt so bad, and it was just like she doesn't want to go back there.
Yep. But there are superfoods, eh? In her defense, there are superfoods, things that you can eat that increase your immunity. So therefore, you may not need any type of medication. And it might come in the form of your moringa plant, or your African bitter leaf, for those of us who are familiar with it. And then you have your zebra peak and all these things. You know, so yeah, she has a point. But I guess you have to know when the cutoff point is.
But again, let's not have that attitude, because then the government of the day would be comfortable knowing that, well, okay, I could just give you that. And like we were talking about previously, we just settle for anything.
Yep.
Let's see here.
Funny you talk about sickness. I was diagnosed with leptospirosis. And again, I have the government to thank for that, because I was on my way to class. It was raining for several days, and it had flooded in the southern part of the island. And after missing one class 1 week, I decided I had to go to class this week. And I had to pass through woodland, which is an area that is prone to flooding. And I drove through some flood. I mean, it wasn't as bad as it was the week before, because it was impassable. And it was flooded for several days. And the funny thing is, the shield, the under shield in my car, under the fender, and I have a pet peeve. Like, and I OCD, So I hate to see vehicles without the fender shield to the front. The funny thing is, there was a pothole in the flood. As you exited, there was a bridge. And when I went in the pothole, the shield got ripped out. So that was a new shield I just placed.
Oh, wow.
Right? And the funny thing is, I came out of the car and I retrieved the shield from the water. I didn't have to stand in the water. I didn't have to go in the water. I just merely picked the shield out. You believe in that moment there that I touched that shield with my bare hands, I was infected.
Oh, wow.
The leptospirosis, that whole disease is so potent that when the rat, the droppings of the rat and excretion and so on, that is so potent that it multiplies. And the next day I was high fever, went to the doctor, pediatrician at the time, and I was immediately diagnosed. I know if I went to the public healthcare system, I might have died.
Wow.
So now I live with this fear that if I have a situation like that to reoccur, what will happen? And I mean, I'm very meticulous. When I placed that shield in the trunk, I immediately got into the car and hand sanitized. It was too late already. That couple of seconds there, that's to tell you how potent that is. So when people see floodwaters, please stay out of the floodwaters. So thanks to our current regime, I went through a leptospirosis for 3 weeks. I was quarantined and so on. And thankfully, the pediatrician medical existed at the time, and I am a living testimony of what it can do.
So you see, you are indeed a success story.
Yeah. But that's why I keep asking, that's why I keep saying, certain things happen to me, and I ask God, well, why does it happen to me? And then I realize it's that so I can help others. So now somebody who,
no, please,
may not be aware.
Don't go in floodwaters, don't go, okay? And if you're going, I guess, wear proper gear, cover yourself up, like boots.
Yeah, of course.
Accessories.
So now I can speak to that from a first-hand experience. Whereas people might say, but you just speculating. No, I can speak to it because I experienced it. You understand?
Let's see here. We have Marlon Citron joining us. Good morning, Marlon. She's watching from New York.
Hey.
Wow, how was New York this morning? In case you're now joining us here on PSA TV, this is Eye on Labor. I have Dr. Real Overtime here in studio with me, but we've been chatting here, of course, about he himself being a former worker at Petrotrin and the developments at Petrotrin and a way forward, and also the economy. So I'm just going to ask you your closing comments before we wrap things up for today.
Well, as usual, it's always a pleasure to be here. I thank you for, your intervention there, an invitation. I think that the people of Trinidad and Tobago need to keep asking salient questions. We need to take the government to account on every single thing that they do. When the Prime Minister makes a comment, feel free to go to social media and state your opinion of what he does. Take them to task, call them to account, because they are the employees and you, my friends, are the employers. As it relates to this whole, public servants scenario, I believe that the public servants, the effort that they make, they are greatly, underestimated, and I think that they are not given enough, appreciation for the human service that they put in. Of course, wherever you go, there will be people who come to work and not do the job. Whether you go to, any workplace, you would find people like that. And as a result of that, sometimes the bad apples, the few bad apples, a lot of us get vilified. And they lump us all together. Don't be discouraged. Based on the salary that you get and the working conditions, sometimes you might be working for something way above your pay grade. So, don't be discouraged by the Prime Minister's comments. I do think that he actually thought it through, right?
Yeah.
And as usual, I always implore you all, Trinbagonians, wherever you are in the world, do what you can today for better tomorrow. And I haven't given her this part of my story yet, but one day I will. As Devon Matthews used to subscribe to, always remember to ask God to give you the strength and the guidance, and everything will be just blessed. And he was my main inspiration for my page. And the funny thing is, when my page kicked off, that was when he died.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that's a story for a different day.
Oh my gosh.
A full discussion about that.
Yes, yes.
Because when he had affairs of the heart, he used to call me to get my opinion on certain things, and he always encouraged me. You need a forum, because you have a lot of neutral points, and you actually bring a lot of value to certain discussions.
Yeah, which is the first reason why I would have invited you on here when
I
saw your video. Very vocal. Of course, you've been on a lot of issues, not just worker-related issues, but other issues. You were telling me that you wanted to be an advocate for women.
Yeah, women's rights,
rights.
Because I think that it's slighted in society. A lot of issues that, and the funny thing about that too is that I tend to be on the receiving end of a lot of abuse from women. But the thing is, I think it's not always their fault. I think that based on the experience that they have, and if we could change the experience that they have in society, then ultimately we can change the entire, climate and the things that men and women go through.
But that, of course, is another discussion for another day. Let me see here. Tamika says, Toronto on board. She says, Rowley is a failure. What about the changes of the board yesterday? Yep.
Yeah, we spoke to that, Tamika, and we clearly stated that it shows mismanagement, on the highest level. Same
faces, different positions, perhaps.
Yeah, we just shuffle in the pack,
Yeah. So I want to thank you so much for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yet another vibrant discussion. We've learned a lot. We've always been appreciative of your views on everything. And like you rightly said, very neutral points, but to some extent, mind-boggling and as real as it can get. So to put it nicely there, thank you so much for coming on this morning, Dr. Real.
Thank you very much, dear.
All right.
And always a pleasure. Anytime. Just let me know and I'll be here.
Yes.
Always a pleasure to serve and to educate.
Yes, that is a main thing, and that is something that we need more in society.
Thanks.
So we're going to head to a break right now, and when we come back, we'll continue our show here on PSA TV. Stay with us.